we're recording it. So Dawn can't join us today, but hopefully you were able to watch both of her videos. Were you all able to do that?
Cool.
Watch your videos. And so Tim and I are just gonna really just talk to you guys and answer questions. And if you don't have questions, there's something wrong, because this is the whole inspection thing is a very complicated part of our business. And it can be simple as far as what and when you can call for inspections and what they're looking for, but it's really the inspectors who do the job, and you're leaning into having a team of people that you trust, that you can bring into your transactions. So I think that's the number one thing that we should probably discuss with you is, do you, at this point, do you have inspectors that you have already you've used? Do you have questions about how do you choose an inspector? We're kind of looking to you to ask us. So
and actually that's kind of my biggest thing, again, because I'm not from here, so I don't have those kind of resources. So that's always kind of been my thing. And I know when I've done inspections on my own homes that I've owned, I've never truly found a full home inspector that I've fully trusted, if that makes sense. So for me, kind of building up those additional people and names, I guess, too, which is a little more specific, but names of home inspectors around here that you trust, that you know do a good job.
Tell us about
you can ask who that is. Who's in the video?
That was, who was that in the video?
Because I really liked how he explained everything and his style.
That wasn't, I know it was not Inspectix. Was it Paul Gaskin?
I'm gonna go look.
Okay, yeah, quickly look.
I watched the video, but it was last round. I don't remember. It wasn't this round classes.
Jackie, tell me about, tell us, what is it that makes you trust what would it be that would make you trust an inspector? Because you
mean as a client or as an agent?
No, just an inspector as a trusted advisor that you call in to do inspections for your buyers and or sellers.
Sure. I mean, I think probably the biggest thing is honesty. I think, again, these are just kind of based off my own experiences of things after I moved into homes that were missed, that were big, important things that I can see with my own eyes that were missed. So kind of that maybe just really doing your job well, being thorough with your job, honest, having integrity. I think those are kind of the biggest things, and being reliable.
Okay. Have you done any inspections, called for any inspections yet, either of you? Or Nicole, who's also on here, Katie, and who are you using and why, and what's your feedback on that?
I really liked, I've used a couple. I like Chad Alvers, I believe, with Cornerstone.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive me if I'm saying his name wrong. He's really responsive, which I like. He's really, like, both of the inspections I've had him on, he was really thorough walking through. I kind of like when an inspector is going to explain to there's going to be issues with every house, of course. I mean, maybe unless it's a brand new build, but like when they can go through with the customer and ease their mind on, there's a lot of things on this report, but these are the things that maybe I would be concerned about. These are things that you could run into anywhere and are really just like homeowner issues that you're probably going to have to take care of one day anyway. So I just think I like when a homeowner really just takes the time to help the customer understand what is significant and what is not significant.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a, you know, like a, well, now that you have to waive inspections, I did a walkthrough with an inspector, and of course you couldn't do anything invasive, so that was a little bit different. And I don't really know how much I like that, because I feel like they can't do the things that really, I mean, they can tell you, yeah, the foundation looks decent, which is good, but I feel like a lot of us can see that maybe, or maybe if they feel like there's water. But I think that's the part I'm having more trouble with, is where you have to waive an inspection to get the house, and now we're having inspectors that will walk through with you, but I don't know, I guess, what can you expect out of that?
I have not had that done, so maybe one of you who have had that done can speak to that. Nope. None of us have had it done. And probably because we have the same questions that you just said, is like, okay, so you walk through and you say, you know, this thing is going to go in 3 years. But then the buyer still wants to buy the house. So not really, yeah, it's a tough, kind of a slippery slope. We're able right now to get inspections through. The last 3 that we've written them with the buyer's going to do an inspection and looking for only major issues over $1,000. That seems to be going on 3 of the last ones we've done. So,
is that in a price point under 200,000?
Yeah, 300, under 300.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the sellers agents have had enough experience with this stuff coming back on them already, that they're trying to help their sellers to understand that may be something they need to, for their own benefit also, that they need to be okay with. And honestly, we're finding less competition than we did a month ago. Okay, we've competed against no more
That's
than
good to hear.
2 people in the last 3-4 that we've done in the last 2 weeks.
Right.
So
Carole, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Katie.
Oh.
Hi.
Sorry, I was just driving. And again, I'm sorry, our air conditioner is out, so I am gross and disgusting, and it's getting installed today. So that's good, but just
Katie's
excuse
been in
that.
the sweat box for.
Yes, I wanted to have my video on, so you see I'm here. But so I had the same situation come up with an offer we did over the weekend, and we at first asked for a home inspection and had a really good offer. So then actually there must have been another offer too, because the list agent came back and said, you know, and just kind of talked with us through it a little bit more, and said it sounded like the other offer they had said home inspection for informational purposes only, unless it warranted an insurance claim.
Mm-hmm.
So my buyers went on ahead and did that. Now, the question I had was, can a seller's agent finagle with the inspection like that? Like my folks really wanted the house, so they were willing to kind of lean that way. But is that, I mean, can an agent finagle with an inspection that way?
Jim or Raquel, do you want to answer that?
I'll let Raquel answer.
Oh, super. Katie, so reiterate, I'm not sure what the question is.
Yeah, so we came in with a strong offer on a house that my buyers absolutely loved. There was it sounds, I wasn't getting the whole scoop, but it sounds like there was another offer too that came through, and the buyers or the sellers liked our offer better, but the other offer, their inspection was informational purposes only, unless insurance claim was warranted. So the listing agent came back and said, hey, we like your offer better, but this other offer is saying informational purposes only, unless an insurance claim, because we had come in asking for a whole house inspection.
You had asked for just a standard whole house inspection with no further explanation. Yeah. As far as I see that, that's just the seller's agent looking out for their seller.
Okay.
I wouldn't look at that as like they're finagling anything with the inspection. It's just that
Okay.
it's like people always say, well, the price is the most important thing. Well, it is, but a lot of times the other terms and conditions.
Absolutely.
Really, because I've seen people leave money on the table because terms and conditions otherwise were better. And in that situation, I think all the agent's doing is just simply clarifying. Like, you guys can do a whole house inspection, but unless we're talking about, and I like that wording, unless it's an insurance claim, like a roof or something like that.
Yeah.
But, and Carole and Tim, you guys, we all know, anybody who's been doing this long enough, I remember the days of people like panicking because, the outlets in the bathroom weren't grounded. I'm like, well, the bathroom hasn't been updated since 1970. So
yeah,
we're talking maybe $60 here. Like, take a chill pill. It's not gonna,
okay.
make a big difference. Okay. So I do like that wording though, because then you're just saying, look, we're just making sure that there's no major defects.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as sellers, agents, I'm not opposed to home inspections. I actually like home inspections. I don't know who it was that said they used Chad. That's actually my brother. And I do like Chad because Chad, first of all, will walk you through the report. There's a couple of them out there that sit you down at the table, which to me is a complete waste of time, because
Absolutely.
buyers don't know what grounding a CSST line looks like unless you actually show them. But I think it's important as sellers agents that we explain to our sellers that if you want somebody to do a whole house inspection, they're brand new at this. Most likely you've got a first-time home buyer who doesn't understand the difference between a grounded outlet or a window well or fill dirt or just something simple like that, let alone, okay, a crack in a block foundation. It's not a big deal unless it's a big deal. A lot of them have cracks, but it's nice to have that expert, if you will, let them know that it's okay. Unless we're talking about a major defect like insurance purposes, then it's going to be an insurability situation and they're not going to be able to get the loan. And then you're really looking for a cash offer, which is a whole different type of sale. But no, I actually like that wording, and I don't think it's a big deal because it sounds like that was the intent of your buyers initially. It's just that the agents just put it in writing that way.
Yeah. So it worked, and they got their house, and we had the inspection yesterday, and no major issues or defects warranting an insurance claim. But this was interesting. The sump pump was broken and it was filled with water. And so honestly, if the inspection hadn't have happened, we could have had a flooded basement the next rain. So I think it was maybe just, it all worked out. So everything.
Well, I think this is a good conversation to have, because the traditional, okay, we're going to have an inspection and we're going to have a radon and the seller is going to be responsible for all these things. And those days are not here. I don't know, but they'll come back again, I'm sure someday.
They will be back.
But we're not living those now. We're not going to probably live those for a while. So I think we have to talk about the language that we use and that actually works now in today's market. Tim, what are you utilizing as far as inspections, or what are you seeing? Okay. I mean, I know you're on the listing side more. What do you see coming at you that's maybe any different or helpful? That would be something new that we could teach.
Well, a couple things before I answer that, I will say you guys have been talking about, Chad Albers, he does a great job. What I call is like Chad and some of these people, they have good bedside manner, meaning they don't scare the buyers. They point everything out. They're fair. They're honest. And to Katie, I think Katie's specific question was, is it okay for the listing agent to almost manipulate that contract to get that? The reality is, you can't trust. I'm not advocating that a listing agent is lying or should lie, but you don't know if that they may have been BSing you that whole time. And if they did, they played their cards right. So you just have to trust. You need to learn how to read them. You need to learn whether or not you think they really are BSing you, whether or not you want proof of the other offer. There's all sorts of stuff. Now, to answer your question, Carole, I only do pre-inspections. So I am primarily a listing agent. Like so far this year, I think I've only sold one house to a buyer. And I'm almost all listings, and I do pre-inspections because I want to avoid all of this, all of it. And it has been wonderful. So
who does your pre-inspections?
Hunter?
I will tell you, Chad Albers was my favorite inspector for years until he decided to get out of the business. And he went to get out of the business, and then I found a couple of other inspectors, and then he never got out of the business, and I would already moved on to somebody else. So Chad is one of my absolute favorite, and it's honestly it's because of his bedside manner, and that has nothing to do with the fact that Raquel's in the room here. But
he's also really good with old and historical homes.
He does, yeah.
He doesn't get freaked out.
And I will tell you guys, I tell every single one of my clients, like clockwork, that's who I recommend. If you don't want to use him because he's my brother, I go, absolutely. I have no issues with that. And I go, I would not recommend him unless I thought he was good. And he is, you guys, bedside manner is the perfect way to put it. He is so good with people. And if Chad says, like, if you say to Chad, would you fix this? If he looks at you and pauses for a second and goes, I would, that means that needs to be addressed. But more than times than not, he knows. No, I would just watch it. You know, it shouldn't be a problem as long as you have, I mean, he is so good at just finding out what's the real problem, what's really a concern. Mm-hmm. And most houses really are not a concern. It's just, you know, you just need to know what's going on.
I honestly would put Chad as possibly the best home inspector in the city. I think he's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Who's your other go-tos, Tim?
So if I represent a buyer, I use Matt Baker with Hunter Home Inspections.
Yeah.
And he specialized. He was a client of mine many years ago, before he ever got into it. And he really, I have to tell you on a sidebar, he really wanted to get into into doing this, and he wanted to specialize in old homes. And he was worried that he was going to pigeonhole himself. And I was like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You are going to have a line of people waiting for you. So he got into the business, and now he is also one of the best home inspectors in the city. And it's, again, it goes to his bedside manner, how he explains things, what he, you know, whether or not you should be panicking. I love him. So if I represent a buyer, oh yeah, go on, Katie.
Sorry, Tim. I thought my question just burning was, Raquel, what company is your brother with? I missed that.
Oh, Cornerstone Home Inspection.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
He's a one-man show. It's just him, Cornerstone. He's had other people with him before, but it's just him.
Yeah, he likes doing his own thing now.
I don't blame him. Yeah. I don't blame him at all. Like I said, he tried getting out of the business, and we wouldn't let him. People just kept calling him.
I think what all of you are alluding to, and for new agents, when you're looking for a home inspector, one of the most important things is, to me, and I know what you guys are saying too, is that they need to be the bedside manner, let's use those words, but they need to be the person that establishes a trust in what they're saying with your clients. And they need to do that from the home inspectors that I do not like. Let me sidebar. The ones I do not like are the ones that just treat it like this is a house and these are the things that are wrong with it. And it's up to you. Do you want to get them fixed or not? I like the ones that say, this will be your home, and this is going to be the maintenance kind of things that you'll have to do to take care of this home. This home maybe has not had really good maintenance, but going forward, there's not a lot of damage so far, but going forward, these are going to be the things that you're going to want to do to maintain this house and make it hold on to its value, versus somebody that's just like, okay, this is a wrecked car that got in an accident and it's going to cost $10,000 to put new pieces back together. That's a whole different conversation than, hey, if you want to maintain this car, you're going to change the oil, you're going to do these kinds of things. And I think it's an attitude of somebody who didn't just get into the business of home inspecting because they wanted to make money and they kind of like to tinker around with things. I think it has to be somebody who really knows how to care for a home and doesn't get scared of the things that are wrong with it, which is all the more reason why, as agents, we need to understand as many things as possible. One of the things that I always tell our clients is that Laura, my partner, does flips. And so when she looks at a house, she looks at it as if, okay, what am I going to have to do and how much is this going to cost? And she looks at different kinds of things. She doesn't come in and just look at, oh my God, what a beautiful kitchen. I love that oven, the doors, the way that it opens. She looks at, the corners of the way that the tiles were put in, and she looks at things, you know, like what's the year of the HVAC, and you know, things that are a lot different, and agent and clients appreciate that. So that's something that you kind of need to get good at, and the way you can get good at it is go to a lot of home inspections and ask a lot of questions.
On that note, Carole, if you're not attending your home inspections, I guess my question would be why? Like, there is no reason, in my opinion, if you're representing a buyer, that you should not be attending your home inspections. From the simple standpoint is, like you said, you need to educate yourself on what these concerns really are and how and I ask inspectors all the time, who do you call for that? How much of a fix are we talking? And 9 times out of 10, it's not as bad as you think it is. But you need to understand that, so you can kind of, explain some of that as you go through, like when you're showing the house. I mean, that's one thing we always point out. Let's look at the furnace. Let's find out, when do we think it was installed? What kind of condition does the foundation walls appear to be in? But I think it's important too, because if you are going to be asking for repairs, you have to understand what the repair actually is. You need to understand and be able to speak intelligently to the listing agent, because some things are not a black and white fix. Some things you need to have a contractor come out and have them look at it to be able to understand how it needs to be fixed properly. So,
right.
Yeah,
it's not always as bad as it looks, but there's some things like there's things that when you're showing a house, one of the things that I would always do is I'd take a picture of the HVAC, the any of the mechanical things. I would take a picture of the last time they're serviced while we went through the house, because we could come back and go to write an offer and it's not in the SPCD and nobody knows anything about it. Also pictures of anything that has like dates and times for when it was installed. AC. There was one other thing that I was thinking of, that even a sump pump, like pick up that cover on it sometimes and take a look, if there's like snakes and stuff down there.
Yeah.
It hasn't been run for a while. But the mechanics and the things that people don't always release. One of the big things I've been hearing too is, you guys probably saw this, is all the things, trees growing in gutters. Why are all these houses? We just did a $400,000 house the other day, and there's like oak trees growing in the gutters. People are just not even cleaning out their gutters. So things like that can really actually cause issues and problems. So that's up to you to be looking at those things, especially if you have out-of-town buyers that are not even here and you're going through with a video.
That kind of leads me to another question about, not minor things, but kind of minor things, like the last time the AC was, or last time the furnace was, checked out or inspected, and the things like the gutters. With the way that the market is now, would those be things that you would request being done? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Depends on how competitive the offer is, or competitive the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you
So
can
and the other thing is that you can have them done, you pay for them. If that's something that's important to have done before you move in.
So let me touch base on that, because I think it's really important. This kind of, to answer that question, I think goes into, once we do get back into a normal market where you're going to see inspections be more consistent, I think it's really important to spell out how a buyer wants something repaired and when. We had a house that Chad bought years ago. Tim, you might remember it. It was that duplex on Underwood, the one that had a hole in the roof.
Yep.
He was so nervous because there was rain coming, and he had paid cash for this duplex, and there was literally a hole in the roof, and they had asked for a tarp to be put on the hole, and the guy didn't get to it, and it was like going to rain that afternoon. It had been like a week. And so Chad was like, okay, I get it's been raining in the house for like the last 2 years, but maybe we could just not have it rain anymore. And the gutters were full. And so I think he went over and did some of it himself, which you got to be careful. That was a unique situation. But I've had it where gutters have been so full and pouring rain is coming and people want to know why they get water in the basement. 9 times out of 10, it is a homeowner maintenance issue. It is not a problem with the house. The homeowner did or didn't do something like cleaning out the gutters. And so I think some of that kind of stuff, when you do ask for it to be done, you need to spell out that we would like that done, you know, within the next 14 days or something. Now, in this market, if you're writing an offer, I agree with, I think, Tim, you said it. It depends on how competitive it is. I think in that situation, I would try to get the house first and then respectfully ask, once you get it all put together, hey, Mr. Seller's agent, is there any way those sellers could have those gutters cleaned? I mean, they are literally growing little fairy forests, but there's, you know, a pouring storm coming all weekend long. I mean, I've got a guy, we could get him. And like Tim said, maybe you just offer to pay for it.
Yeah.
But I think my goal would be just get the house first. Then, you know, when you do your walkthrough, just really look for any water in the basement and just know that it's probably because the gutter's not being cleaned.
I like the fairy forests.
Yeah. I gotta say, I have one at a rental where I'm like, oh God, we got to get a ladder up there. Every time we go over, I'm like, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, my gutter guy.
Yeah, I'm kind of a water freak because every home I've owned has had water issues. So I look at, like people who don't have extenders on their gutters that don't even have, I'm like, oh my God. Like it just, so I always pick up on little things like that, but those again are little things. And so, you know, kind of how
those can be big things, and it's good for you to be able to do that. And so if you just take that thing that really bothers you about water, and then you add another one and another one, all of a sudden you become this really astute agent when you're showing houses, and you can actually speak to it. You know, electricity bothers me. Like that just freaks me out. Anything about like bad wire. My dad was an electrician for 50 years, and maybe that's why, but it just scares me. Like the idea of things that are not done correctly, electrical, because it can cause fires and, you know, all kinds of things. So yeah, I think we all have our, I hate the water thing too. Like we just had water in our basement last week. So.
And Carole, I see that as being something that when you're showing a house, and Jackie, this is something like Carole saying, you're astute to water, Carole's to electric. I love when buyers ask me if something scares me. I'm like, no, what would scare me would give you a heart attack. Like I've had houses where people have died in them, like whatever. Nothing seems to faze me.
While you were showing it?
No, not while I'm showing it, but we've had our fair share. Like we've all had snakes. So if I see snakes, I'm like, oh, look, I'll be back upstairs. But I think when you're going through a house, whatever it is, and we're not experts. That's the key thing. We're not experts. And I tell my buyers that this is all part of the conversation. But one of the things that I do for my buyers when we're walking through a house is I'm going to point out things like the good stuff. Hey, that crown molding up there, that's actually called picture molding. It was designed for that. And you're supposed to hang pictures. And here's why. You don't put nails into plaster. And so it's a fun little conversation. But then I turn around and I point out things like, if we notice them, hey, the grounded outlet or the outlets in the living room, they're 3-prong. But I also want you to know that doesn't necessarily mean that they're truly grounded. Someone's come through and updated the outlets, but may or may not have grounded the wires. Then we have a little conversation about that. In bathrooms and kitchens, it's a little more easy because they usually have the resets. But, you know, people do things thinking they're doing it the right way and they're just updating it. When we're talking about like when we walk around the outside of a house, I might point out that gutter extensions, you know, hey, this gutter extension should be a little bit longer because boy, if that water were to back up and you can already see that, you know, the dirt's going away in this corner. Or we look at patios and sidewalks and things like that when they're tilted towards the house. You know, we have conversations about that. And again, I think a lot of that just goes into that overall condition of the home. And I mean, I showed a house in the Duchenne area to a gal the first house she saw was lipstick on a pig. The more you looked at it, the more you realized that whole house needed to be painted, not just the backside and the trim, the whole house. And then inside, it was very cute, but you really take away, and I said, take away all her furniture and her cute stuff. You've got layers of paint on layers of paint. You've got a kitchen that's painted. What was that?
Doorknobs painted.
Yeah, doorknobs painted. They painted over outlets. You know, the doors, you had to like really pull them to get them to shut and latch. I'm like, I think it's a cute house, but I'm like, I don't think this is the one for you. And then fast forward, what's the next house I show her? It was, I think it was Jill Sledden's on 54th and Parker. I looked at her and I go, okay, you've seen Lipstick on a Pig, and then you've seen like literally pinpoint perfect high-end finishes in this tiny house. I mean, that house was perfect. I go, we need to find something in between. But I mean, a lot of it's just pointing things out to people and what they should be. And again,
Teaching them.
it's homeowner maintenance. A sloping sidewalk isn't a big deal, but hey, in the next 5 to 10 years, you know, watch, if you start getting water in your basement, you may need to have that sidewalk report or, you know, whatever they call that, where they put the dirt in and they fill it up. But, you know, the mud jacking. Mud jacking, yes. But I think that's all stuff that as you're showing houses, you need to point out the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yes, the kitchen is so pretty, but boy, these kitchen cabinets have been well loved. You know, the hinges all need to be readjusted. We've all shown.
Don't you think that there's a lot of this, what you're saying, that is in language that you should understand? Like, how many of you know what mud jacking is?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Good. Yeah.
Oh, good. Great. So I didn't know what that was before I got into real estate. So there's things that what about the, you know, what the electrical box is that needs to be taken out, that's been outlawed?
Not outlawed.
Not outlawed.
Not just questionable. Yeah.
They say outlaw. I did say outlaw.
Federal Pacific.
Yeah, Federal Pacific. So if you see those will need to be replaced. And if you get an inspector in there, the inspector is going to call it. No inspector, they're not going to call it. It'll stay there. It's still going to function, but it might not be the best thing for them to leave.
Keep in mind, the reason they need to be replaced is because if you're familiar with circuit breakers versus fuses, a circuit breaker, if it overheats, it will trip and turn off. Fuses will just pop. You know, and the problem is they're all the same size. So people think if 15's popping, I'll put 20 in. That's bad.
Right.
But with the Federal Pacific, they weren't turning off like they were supposed to. So they were allowing wires to overheat and start fires. They're not all bad, but generally speaking, Federal Pacifics should be replaced. And that is, like Carole said, that's a good thing when you're going through. Just make a quick note of that and let your buyer decide how important that is to them.
Yeah, we usually take a picture of the box.
Yeah, and you're probably talking, I would say, 12 to 1,500.
Exactly, that's exactly what the price is. Yeah, 12 to 1,500.
And speaking about those boxes, what ages of houses are you mostly talking about with those boxes?
60s or 70s, probably.
Yeah. 80. Our house 80s? Has one.
You have one?
And it was 86.
It's been replaced though, right?
No.
What? You're freaked out by electrical and you still have that?
I just found out.
Oh.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say.
She only tells me so much. I don't go in the basement.
She's smart. She's smart.
Just got ours taken out. We just got ours replaced. We had one too.
Yeah.
And I've had some electricians tell people that it's not all of them. It's only certain models. But I think at some point they're so old. It's, what was the car, like the Studebaker? They weren't all bad, but at some point, so many that were bad. You're just like, okay, fine, don't buy that kind of car.
We just had our entire geothermal system replaced.
Yeah.
Taken out. We had that completely cut off and replaced with just a regular furnace and AC. So
Katie has a question.
Katie. I was just wondering, with the Federal Pacific box, will it say that on there, or is there like a specific look to a Federal Pacific box?
It's just called Federal Pacific.
So it'll say that on the box.
So when you look at a house, Katie, just go to the box all the time. Just go to the box. Yeah. Take a picture of it, with your camera. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there, and my phone cut out, so I'm sorry if anybody spoke about this already, but like, we're talking about all the things that we should look at. And I know a lot of people have said, like, you could go on inspections and that would help you learn, what to look for. But is there any type of like list that anybody's ever put together just for like newer agents to have in hand to say, oh, let me pay attention to these things? as we're doing showings. And then hopefully after we do enough of them, we would become more knowledgeable about noticing them or seeing different things.
So I have a buyer's checklist that I give my buyers of things to look out for. And I tell them by no means is this everything, but it's everything from, I think it says foundation, electrical, plumbing, you know, tell them to check things like the school districts, the neighbors, the sex offenders list, that kind of stuff. I'd be more than happy to share that with you. If anybody wanted to go, you know, like tour like a vacant house, which would probably be more simple because you wouldn't be putting out a seller, or I've got, you know, like a new listing coming up in the next couple of weeks, I'd be more than happy to take a couple of people through that house and kind of show it to you how I would show a buyer. So you can see the things that I would point out. And if you guys can sell an older house, trust me, the new stuff, anything built in like the 80s or later is a piece of cake. It's different. It's different because you don't deal with siding issues in the older houses like you do, you know, like the old celebrities. I mean, it's funny if you ask Chad, and any good inspector should be able to answer this too. If you ask him, what are the main problems in Weston Hills, Hillsborough, Stone Park, you know, whatever the subdivision is, Pacific Springs, he'll be able to tell you based on the era of home, the builders and whatever, what the general, like he knows walking into certain houses, what are triggers. These houses are known to have window problems. These houses are known for electrical. So any good inspector will be able to tell you that. But I'd be more than happy, like I said, just pick some random like vacant houses. Maybe we can go look at 2 or 3 of them, like completely different era. And I'd be more than happy to, you know, just kind of like walk through how I would do it and what to
That'd be amazing. Thank you, Raquel. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
I won't walk you through my house because that would be like overload on problems, but that's a whole lot. What's this? This is called exposed wiring. Let's look this way.
And you're laughing at me about the federal Pacific box.
But remember her, nothing scares Raquel.
Nothing does. My kids came home to circular saws. I still remember when we brought my daughter home, the nurse was like, they just like let you walk through, you know, you guys know, they just leave. You're like, wait, I'm just going to walk out the door with this baby. Like just walk home. You know, there's circular saws. Like there was no, I mean, it's just both my kids came home to construction. They know, just don't touch it.
Yeah.
Just don't touch the live wires. Okay. It's all good.
So, new construction, do you do inspections on new construction?
It's a good one. Good question. I mean,
I don't do a lot of new construction, but I don't think it's a bad idea because we're all human and people make mistakes. And just because something I think has gone through city inspections, you know, I know you guys have heard this where somebody said, well, that's not built to city code. And I'm like, well, good God, I hope it's built better than city code because city code's pretty bare minimum. But I don't think it's a bad idea. The only thing that I can think of though is you've got those 1-year builder warranties. So if anything were to go wrong, I mean, you're covered for like every little thing that goes wrong. Although I did sell a new construction home one time and they had no insulation in the attic. And
that happened to me.
Yeah.
That happened to me, that exact thing.
He found it when he ran wire.
We did do an inspection and I was like, oh, I don't know if you need it. My buyer decided to do it. Turned out that they had never blown in insulation in the attic. So Raquel, that happened to both you and me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't do a lot of, we don't do a lot of new construction, but everyone that we've done inspections.
Yeah.
And every single inspection that we've done has shown something.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Julia.
I feel like I was watching a different AMA or ATA about this a little while ago, so sorry if it's a continuous topic, but can you walk me through the the smoke detector
Rules,
requirements?
laws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need
I
to have
hear different things.
We need to have clarification on that, by the way. Do you remember my email from a couple weeks ago? No?
I don't.
Somebody asked.
Was that the one with the inspector was saying you needed one in every room and on every floor? Like, was that the email?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
So I checked and I checked with a couple of firemen people. It was funny because both firemen from different houses said different things. So I called the fire marshal and they were super nice. On our contract, it says per state law. Well, state law requires a smoke alarm in each bedroom and each floor of the house if it's finished. They consider an attic, like a walk-up attic that would just be storage, Tim, like in the older houses. If it's not a finishable attic, but it's used for storage, they consider that, requiring a smoke detector because it's got a finished floor. If you can store stuff on it, it's finished. So theoretically, in a 2.5-story home, which would have an attic, let's say it's a 3-bedroom, you would need 7 smoke detectors because you'd need 1 in each bedroom. You then need 1 on the 2nd floor, like in the hallway. You'd have the attic, the main floor, and the basement. And I'm like, I've been telling everybody you need 1 per floor. And so I think that's something where as an industry, it's kind of on one of my checklists, my many to-do lists that I write my notes on. I think that's something we just need to have clarification, because if we do start seeing inspectors saying that, we're going to have a discrepancy between listing agents, what we're telling sellers, what buyers are expecting, what state law, because the contract states per state law, and that's what state law is. And then it's that gray area.
Well, you're right. We need real good clarification. This is an important issue. We've heard of those rare cases where fires happen. And my nephew was dating a girl, and she had 2 little boys that both died in a fire. And because they were in a rental, this was not Omaha, and there were no smoke detectors in the house. I mean, this is big shit. So I would really like to know what that is. Now, how about carbon monoxide testers? Because that's real. That's new, is what I meant to say.
Yeah, and he said, I didn't get any further on that, because he said, as far as they're concerned, they don't have any clarification over that. He goes, we don't require that. I mean, he goes, it's good to have them. He goes, but we don't have any, I guess, authority over that. So I wasn't even sure who to call, and I kind of have just put it to the wayside. But I do think as an industry, I mean, like, in our rentals, we do 1 in every bedroom. I mean, we probably do overkill as landlords, but after talking with the fire marshal, I don't think we do overkill.
Hey, Tim,
now.
we have a sales meeting coming up. Can you put that on the agenda?
Yes, actually, let's talk about that at our meeting at 2:00 today.
Yeah.
With our core group. Let's find out what the true, real, honest response is for this, and then let's make this. This is too important issue for us to be wishy-washy on.
Okay.
Well,
I think the important thing,
I just built a house, and so they put, they did the combination smoke and carbon monoxide detector, and of course they're all hardwired, but I do have 1 in each room, and then right outside of each room is another one.
Yeah.
So they're literally like,
you have,
and I only have 2 finished floors, but they're everywhere.
Yeah, and yours are all hardwired. So if 1 goes, yeah, we so he had said it's 1 per bedroom, and then 1 per, he called it finished floor. And the reason he goes, your basement, you're always going to have 1, and you do not want it in the furnace room, because furnaces kick off a little bit of carbon dioxide right when they first kick on. It can be in a furnace room. He goes, just don't put it right by the furnace. But then as far as a finished room, he said anything that has a finished floor, so like an attic where it's maybe just walk-up storage only, if it has any kind of a finished floor, he goes, you want 1 up there. He goes, I would recommend 1 up there regardless, but he goes, that would be a requirement. Now, in new construction, or if there's somewhere there's like some kind of a permit pulled, it's easy to, make sure that this is happening. But when we're doing real estate transactions, it's all per the contract, and it's, it's kind of a handshake and a smile, because nobody is checking this. And I do agree. I think they're very important. I think they're very important. I mean, we have them like that. And
a lot of the contracts now say seller to do no repairs, and we got one of ours.
That's not a repair.
No, I know, but on one of ours, on the seller came back and said, we didn't agree to do any repairs. And it was also that we didn't fight it, but it was also in regards to the smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. So.
Yeah.
Well, and I also want further clarification, because I saw you said you had to go, Jackie. It's okay.
Yeah.
You got your goodbye. I'll see you
later.
Thank
you. I'm glad you joined us, Jackie.
I sold a house to a fireman a couple of years ago, and we didn't go dive into this conversation that deeply, but we did talk about carbon monoxide testers. And he was telling me how he does not think that they're safe when they're combinations. Like Jackie just said, she has a carbon monoxide and a smoke, because the smoke rises, or well, can rise, and the carbon monoxide is down here.
Yeah,
So,
I've heard that too. I heard that you should actually have a plug-in carbon monoxide down low. Yeah.
Because carbon monoxide usually comes up slowly from the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's typically what happens. I am going to put this on the forefront of what we have. I want to find some way of putting together like a nice printed one sheet that clearly defines what the rules and laws are for smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors.
I think that would be good.
Something we can give to sellers. We should
Yes.
be available for us to give to sellers as well as us knowing that.
Well, and I wish it was just spelled out more in the contract, because like Carole, you dealt with the whole, and I've heard other people having that problem where they said, hey, we said no repairs. I'm like, this is not an inspection thing. This is a state law. This is not, this has nothing to do. So I think that might even be, and I hate to add another addendum, but maybe, I don't know. I mean, at some point it just needs to be clarified, or at least clarification within her home. I mean,
there's probably a lot of that, people refusing to do anything. So you agree on no repairs on June 1st, the house closes on August 1st, and in between there somebody tore out a wall. Like, are we still in the no repairs, or is there something that, I mean, there's
that I think would, that falls under that walkthrough. But it's at the end of the day, if the buyer wants the house, they want the house, but liability wise.
I know, but I hate people being in that position where you're really a leaf at the mercy of the wind. Like you're kind of being held by, I don't know,
held ransom. Yeah, no, I know. I've got a new construction that, speaking of doing new construction, that she already told me the house will sell. Their new base price is $30,000 more than what we paid for it. And there's a price increase in July. And so I kind of felt like going, so what you're saying is, if during our walkthrough, we're not happy with the final paint job, oh, well, that's kind of how I took it, but we'll see how it goes when it closes. No, I think that would be good to have some clarification, at least from within our brokerage, and then maybe get the other brokerages on board once we have a plan.
I will go to the details of finding out what the rules are, what the laws are, and I'll get with my team and we'll put together something that I won't put it together like it's an addendum, but something like an FYI. These are the rules.
Yeah.
And then we can do with what we want.
And I think it would be good for us, Tim, also to have a one of the broker ATAs that we do that's just about home inspections.
Ooh. Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
I'll put it on my list.
By the way, when I talk to my sellers about smoke detectors and carbon monoxide testers, I always say, it doesn't matter what the laws are. It would be horrible if somebody died under our watch. We need to leave the home with working smoke detectors and carbon monoxide testers over and above what the law requires.
I will say the key is they do need to be installed.
Yes.
It is part of the law. You cannot just open them up, put batteries in, and set them on the kitchen counter.
Yep.
They do need to be installed. I think 3M strips will constitute being installed, but they need to be installed.
Yep. Agreed.
Right now, we're lucky if they broom sweep the house.
Oh God, yeah. Let's not even get into the whole.
Yeah.
What constitutes a clean house? I'm like, the sellers for previous to you leaving their paint behind. I don't want it. I think in regards, just to summarize for you guys, inspections and stuff, I think the key thing is when you talk with your buyers ahead of time on what to expect from an inspection, walk through the house when you're looking at them with more detail than just the pretty kitchen and the layout and the open concept and the buyer's or the seller's furniture, which isn't staying. Look at the details, look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that they have a better overall picture when they are making an offer. Are you okay adding gutters and doing concrete work later and painting or doing whatever it is that you feel you need to do? Are you okay not having a home inspection? If you are going to do a home inspection, I think you need to spell it out in the contract. When you're doing it, how soon you're going to have it done, when you're going to have a response. You need to tell the seller as much detail as you can. If you need to put in that wording, I liked that wording again about only for insurable items or something like that, or major defects, or, major defects is a gray area. So I think it's nice to spell it out that it's insurable items, which really for the most part is just the roof or maybe electrical. And then I think you need to make sure that you do attend. Use that as an educational opportunity for yourself to understand. And a lot of times it's just listening to the home inspectors and how they explain things. You'll start to, after you do 8 or 10 of them, you'll start to see a pattern, and you'll start to pick up on, just like any inspector, what problems are in various homes. What does it really cost to fix that siding that's warping on the bottom? Why is that siding warping? What's wrong with this window? Whatever it is. A lot of that just comes with experience. And then the key thing is just helping your seller or your buyer, whichever side of the fence you're on, coordinate repairs or figure out what's most important to them, or wording it in such a manner that if it is important to have those gutters cleaned out in the next 10 days, write that in the inspection response. The buyer would like the gutters cleaned out by, and put a date. Don't just say 14 days. Say we would like them cleaned out by June 20th, at the seller's expense. That's the other key thing, is making sure you're telling who's paying for what.
Good point.
That's a key thing, at seller's expense, or seller. I'd have to look on some of my old, God, it's been so long since I've done an inspection. I don't even know how
Katie, you have a question?
I do. Yeah. Based on, there's a couple, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to monopolize the questions if there's other people too. But I'm looking at, so like the offer that I did over the weekend, I used the Better Homes inspection addendum where we asked for the whole home inspection. That second page, and I'm pulling it up right now just so I can, but that second page where it breaks down, like you have to list like number of days for certain things to happen. Is there direction somewhere on how many days we should be putting in that part? Am I making sense?
Yeah. Katie, I'm going to have to refer this one to Tim or Carole, because I don't even use that. Unfortunately, the 2 inspections I've done in the last year, I've just written in what we were going to do quickly, because it was just, we would get it done in 3 days, and we said we'd have an answer the same day of the inspection. We were either going to take it or leave it.
Okay.
I will agree. The wording on that addendum is really muddy. I have a hard time thinking, if I can't understand it, it's going to be hard for me to explain it to a list agent, let alone a seller. So that's probably a whole nother conversation. Carole, maybe in your ATA, that could be a focus.
I'll still kind of answer your question though, because I am with Raquel, even though I don't use that addendum either. It's confusing.
Okay.
I think you can. Now, I'm not saying don't use that addendum. Yeah. I'm just saying that we have found ways to be more clear, because you can, in paragraph 10, you can specifically spell out what you're looking for, be very nice and clear and concise. But to answer your question though, that before that addendum came along, we didn't have that addendum because our contract was kind of built in the contract, and it was typically 7 to 10 days. Now, I think the contract said 7 days, but we could write in 10 days, something like that.
It was 7 days, and then we would always put 10 in because you couldn't get an inspector within 7.
Exactly. But now it's a whole different world. Now you could put in 7, and you would most likely get a reputable home inspector in there within 7. Or what you do is you call the home inspector when you're writing the offer, and you say, how backed up are you? And then you say, and maybe even put it as a shorter time frame. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the shorter the time frame, the more likely the seller is going to accept the offer. So just try to button that up. But I also like what Raquel says, and I'm with her. Like, when we have a home inspection, I don't need 3 days to respond. I mean, maybe one.
I don't want 3 days to respond.
I want her to spend that same night or the next day, Yeah. So I think buttoning that up, and you can do that with your own style, and you can learn what works for you.
Okay, great. That's my being new. I thought we had to use that, so that's good too.
And one final note, back to what we had started on the inspection timeframes. As a seller's agent, if you don't like what the buyer's agent has written, maybe they've done 10 days and 3 days to respond, and then the seller has 3 days, just simply sit back and say, no, you've got 7 days to get that inspection done. I want a response within keep in mind, 1 business day and 1 day are 2 totally different things.
Yes.
The inspection on Friday, good Lord, 3 business days can take this thing out 2.5 weeks. So
Yeah.
think about your overall timeframes as a seller's agent, even as a buyer's agent, like Tim said. You really want to, if you have to have the inspection, I've got buyers that have to have them. I get it. But they need to figure out, do you really want the house? Or are you going to sit here and nitpick? Because if you're going to nitpick, there's 7 other people who wrote offers and they're just nipping at your heels. So
Exactly.
keep them short and keep it, whatever side of the fence you're on, know what you're requesting and what you're accepting.
Hey, Tim, I made you the host. I've got to go on to a Buffini meeting.
No problem.
So you guys can wrap it up. The great conversation. One last thing I want to say is any questions that you have about inspections, anything regarding all of this that we talked about, or the videos that you watched that Don did, send them to me or send them to Tim, and we'll address them in make sure this next ATA has them. So
yeah, that sounds good. Okay, I'll let you go. I think everybody else, I think we're probably almost done anyway as well. Does anybody have anything untouched or any more questions about this issue? By the way, inspections, there's no way in hell all your questions would have been answered today. This is forever. That's forever. You're always going to have questions.
Always learning.
Always.
I did send, I sent you, Carole, and I sent Rhonda that buyer checklist. I sent my PDF version, and then I also sent the Excel version of it. So if you want to modify it and put your own logos and stuff on it, you're more than welcome to use it. It's just a great conversation starter, especially for new or first-time home buyers. It's a great way for them to start thinking about what's important in being a homeowner.
That's really nice. I see it here. This is great. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're done. So thank you, everybody. And good talking to you. And we'll see you tomorrow on the ATA, if you're all there. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for chiming in. You're always such a great mentor. We really appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. Bye.
I really appreciate it. Bye-bye.